Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw. I am delighted tonight to be joined by the Wet Bandits from Home Alone, Keith Jackson and Scott McDermott. How's it going?
The what?
Who?
Wet
You've seen
Bandits?
Home Alone. You've seen Home Alone, haven't you?
Aye, the two burglars he's talking about.
Aye, there you go.
Aye. So I'm with Joe Pesky now, I think.
You can be Joe Pesci and Keith can be Marv with the iron and all that. Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay, that's a good start, Dan. Glad to be back, mate.
That's what I do. It's good to see you. Scott and I were on last night, but obviously we were missing yourself, Keith. I feel like I've got the old team back together. We've got the band back together.
Yeah, ready to roll.
Absolutely.
This is it. This is the start of the new season, isn't it?
Do you think it sounds so weird to say the 25-26 season? Sounds
No.
like the future.
Well, it kind of is.
Excellent.
I don't know.
Genuinely is. Literally is the future.
Literally, it's the future.
No,
Listen, I'm going to shoot off, guys. I don't think it's going particularly
Okay,
well.
mate.
So, yeah. Listen, best place for us to start, I think, is Rangers, because as we were preparing for today's show, some breaking transfer news potentially, Keith, coming out of Rangers. Some reports online. You never know whether or not to trust these kind of online guys, but news that Max Aarons could be on his way to Ibrox.
Do you know what interests me about it? And we're trying to check it out right now in terms of veracity. What interests me about it is, just doing kind of initial digging around, you'll find you don't need to look too far to find that he's also been linked and has been linked over the last 24 hours or so with Leeds United. That's interesting to me. I am working on the assumption at this minute in time that whatever database that Leeds United are using, courtesy of the San Francisco 49ers technology, I don't think the people on that list are going to be too far removed from the sort of names that Rangers might be looking at. Now, granted, I think Daniel Farke has worked with Max Aarons. I think that he was in charge at Norwich when Aarons really had a big breakthrough for a couple of seasons and earned himself a £7 million move to Bournemouth. Hasn't worked out particularly well for him there. He's on loan, or has been on loan at Valencia. I don't think it's gone great there. So I think he's gone the best bit of a calendar year without getting a great deal of game time. Now, you can understand why Farke would want him, but it's interesting if there's a wee glitch in the system here and Rangers and Leeds end up competing for players, the same sort of players, the same profiles, the same names. So I'm interested. As we say, we are checking it out. It does make a sense on a lot of sort of different metrics. Why Rangers might be looking for a player like this, why he might be interested in going to a place like Rangers where he would get, you would have to imagine, a lot more game time than he managed in La Liga last season. But the other interesting part of that is where it leaves James Tavernier. Would he be coming in as a replacement? Is it just simply competition for the right back slot? So there's a lot of imponderables in there, but I'm interested by the name and for a number of reasons.
As Keith says, Scott, it's kind of weird grey area. Rangers and Leeds going after the same sort of players. It's like, I don't know, it's a strange one.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I wonder about that because you think Premier League and Scottish Premiership would be in different markets. I mean, I think Leeds are about to sign a centre back for Udinese. I think it's Bijol, his name, and I think that's 22 million. So I mean that shows you Rangers would obviously never be involved with players commanding that kind of fee. But I suppose Aarons, no, if it was a loan, no, that both of them could be in for him. They might have different kind of plans for him depending on how the squad set up. But as Jacko says, it's interesting because of Tavernier. I think Max Aarons wouldn't be coming for Bournemouth to Rangers to sit on the bench as James Tavernier's backup. We know obviously the captain's in his last year his contract, getting into last year his contract. He's not getting any younger. So I think Aarons would come in and at the very least expect to be competing in a kind of level playing field with Tavernier for that right back spot. Now I know Russell Martin's obviously come in and declared right away that Tavernier's going to continue as his captain. But I was there that day at the press conference when he was asked about it, and although he said he likes Tavernier and he obviously played with him, really admires him, the qualities that he's got, and he was going to keep him on as captain, he did caveat that by saying, but like every other player, he'll need to prove to me that he deserves a place in the team. So I don't think Tavernier's guaranteed a start every week at Rangers this season with a new manager, new owners, going into the last year of his deal. So that's what interests me. If they go for somebody like Aarons, who's obviously younger profile, would probably fit Russell Martin's style better in terms of being able to bomb up and down for right back. So I think that's really interesting whether he'd be coming in. Maybe not as the first choice right back right away, but he'd certainly be competing for that position.
I think he's also played at left back. I think he's versatile. He can play both sides. So that would be another kind of feather in his cap in terms of a reason that Rangers might be interested, because they were looking at both sides of both full backs, I would have thought, this summer. But you know what? Journalistically, this one has just piqued my interest a little bit, Scott. And you know why? It's interesting that Leeds are credited with having an interest, understandable reasons. But you know how this business works. Sometimes people, put 2 and 2 together, and they get 5. And it could be that if Rangers and Leeds are using similar people, similar systems, maybe someone that previously represented Leeds going into talks has put a phone call in, but people got the wrong end of the stick. Oh, that guy works for Leeds. So it feels as if this one needs to be properly explored. And certainly, I think the what's being claimed anyway at this point is that the deal has pretty much been agreed. It's just a matter now of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, etc. But a deal in principle has been agreed that would see him come to Glasgow on loan, I think initially for 12 months. So I'm interested, and obviously we're working to sort of verify that as best we can.
We are obviously getting some feedback already from Rangers fans. I'll hit you with a few comments in just a moment, guys. But if you're watching and you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so in the comment section below. Rangers Easy OK says, if the first signing of the new era is a right back, what does that say about the captain who's approaching his testimonial? Out with the old, in with the new, it seems for us. This one from Stephen says, here's a sentence nobody said in a lifetime. That would actually be a really decent signing by Rangers. Aarons is a very decent right back. But David says, Martin will learn very quickly. He can't keep targeting League One and League Two players and get away with it at Rangers. And I think, Scott, that's in reference to another player who's been linked today, Kwame Poko, and I apologise if I've absolutely butchered his name. He's the 23-year-old Peterborough winger that apparently is close to signing for Rangers as well.
Apparently, I mean, I spoke to someone at Peterborough today, old Barry Fry, believe it or not, and he obviously said at the weekend there was 25 clubs chasing this boy on a free transfer, obviously. But as far as he was concerned, nothing had been agreed as yet with Rangers, even though he's very well aware that they're in for him. I mean, listen, I don't know too much about him. I've watched video clips. Like every player, you see all the best bits, and he looks really good. Obviously, with Rangers losing Czerny, who's obviously come back after his successful loan. No, there's no doubt they need a right winger, and that's the position he plays. He loves to cut in the left foot. So again, I think he would suit Russell Martin's style. And listen, if they can pick him up, he's obviously highly rated. If they can pick him up on a free, then on paper certainly it would look a great bit of business. My only kind of concern with him is, I mean, he has been at Peterborough. I think I'm saying 3-4 years or 3-4 seasons now. And I'm just surprised that nobody else has picked him up in that time. Do you know what I mean? Or nobody else has gone in and got him if they thought, he was that good that he could go to that kind of level. But you need to assume Rangers have done their homework on him. if Barry Fry's right, there's 25 clubs in for him, then he's obviously decent. And certainly if they can pick him up on a free, look at what Rangers did with Joe Aribo a few years ago. No, they picked him up in a cross-border transfer. I think it was only a few $100,000 for Charlton. I think I seem to remember Lee Boyer, the manager at Charlton, being raging at the time that Rangers kind of exploited this kind of loophole to get Aribo. So it would be, in terms of the levels, it would be similar to that. And obviously, if Rangers get him, they would hope he can certainly do what Aribo did and make them a few quid a few years down the line.
I think the thing is, though, Scott, that if that is correct, if this information is correct, if this signing is legit, I think it just shows that Rangers fans are in for. They're going to have to show a bit of patience if that's possible, because what you're effectively doing is, if you're saying that this guy's coming in to replace Czerny, Czerny's an experienced, top-level international, representing his country at the Euros recently. Coming from a major league, big club, and if this is the sort of a pound-for-pound replacement that Rangers are lining up across the board, you don't know. This might just be one guy, and they might think they've got an absolute diamond in him. Who knows? But I think I think it becomes a hard sell if Rangers are looking to replace proven international players with guys from that far down the league structure in England, and expecting to put up a challenge to Celtic next season, because that is going to be the expectation.
Yeah.
But you're right. If they're accused of downgrading across the board, the Rangers fans, I don't know how patient they're going to be with it.
No, I totally agree. I mean, and nobody's saying he's going to come in as first choice right winger. I mean, you could argue Rangers probably need two players in that position. And you look across the city, because obviously that's what we're always comparing them to. I mean, if Celtic go and get Negren, the Swedish player, at right wing, obviously there's speculation this morning about Nicholas Kuhn maybe leaving, but if Kuhn stayed, I said last night to Daniel on here, I mean, if Celtic had Kuhn and Negren as options on the right wing, that gives them real strength in that position. Do you know what I mean? And that's ultimately, I suppose, what Rangers squad wise are trying to get to. So no, Poko might not come in as first choice right winger. But I agree, Jacko, they need to be careful. I mean, they need real quality in the squad. As you say, especially with Czerny going out in that position.
I think, as Scott, the important thing from a Rangers perspective is they need to find the right balance. Obviously, this is a major, yet again, another summer where they're facing a major rebuild. They need to get more right than wrong, that's for sure. But I don't think you can be too top heavy with project players at this point as well, because you've got to be aware that you've got a supporter base here who have seen this rotation happen year on year on year, and it very seldom goes the way they want it to go. So I think, in terms of, yes, I understand Rangers will need bodies. Scott, you might be right. Maybe this is a player that they'll be looking at, to make a longer, an impact in the longer term. But, in terms of what the supporters are hoping for from the new American owners, I think they need to bring in some established quality replacements for guys like Czerny, who was such a key component in the final third for them last season. I'm not sure that bringing in guys from that level and hoping that they're going to come good, whereas it's a good model, it can't be the only model, is what I'm saying. You need to then be able to mix that up and say, well, yeah, but we've also, going after these guys that have proven track record at a far more prominent, high-profile level. I think that's going to be absolutely crucial. But I do accept the numbers involved are likely to be so great in terms of how many bodies need to come and go out of the place over the course of the summer, that there will be some, I guess, that'll be the sort of project department, but they'll need to make sure that they mix that with.
You're talking about balance, and you mentioned patience here, and you're right, and that's why we've said all along on here, how massive a job this is for Russell Martin and Kevin Thelwell, because I know Rangers fans are sitting just now that the players are coming back on Monday for pre-season training. There's not been a signing yet. They're looking across the city. Celtic are already further ahead. You see Tierney already arriving. The Swedish boy looks as if it's going to get done as well. And of course, there's a new manager, new sporting director, new owners, so it's going to take a bit of time. And you wouldn't want any new manager to rush in signings, coming into a club the size of Rangers. But as Jacko says, it's so delicate. When they come back to training on Monday, it'll be exactly a month until the first Champions League qualifier, which is incredible. You think this squad has to be completely overhauled. And the other balance is, as I said last night, Daniel, they need to strike a balance between offloading players and bringing new ones in. Fans just... And it's difficult to get rid of players that are on decent money and decent contracts, and often it can take until the end of the window before you get like a Rabbi Matondo or a Cifuentes out the door. But fans are impatient because they want to see things happening now, and that's the real difficult balancing act that Thelwell
I think
managers got.
I think in fairness, Scott, Dan, we started talking about this weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Long before the end of last season, and we're making the point that Rangers are already really behind the eight ball in terms of the planning for next season.
Yep.
It hasn't been accelerated. So it wasn't as if, because people were saying, well, these guys will be working behind the scenes. They'll be... Now, maybe they were, but these things are not easy to accelerate and expedite. And here we are, as Scott says, a week or so away from Rangers returning to pre-season training, and I think they're in a really difficult spot already in terms of next season. And you had, what the warnings were there, and they were being made when Barry Ferguson was still in the position as interim manager, where he was pointing out, guys, things really need to start happening here, because these moves, Celtic have got the Kieran Tierney thing, which was tied up obviously at the end of January, but they also had other targets. They were working towards what happens in the summer, and it just feels as if Rangers are really late to the party here in terms of how they transform this. And I think Russell Martin was quite clever in what he said, that he understands in this position he's going to have to try to find a way of winning while he's building something, whatever the new squad might look like. But again, in terms of where the Rangers fans have been on this journey with a football club over the period, I think there'll be a few of them, if they look to the pictures that come out from Auchenhowie on Monday of next week, and it's all the same old faces, and the guys that they didn't really want to see coming back from loan spells elsewhere, and guys that have never proved their quality in a Rangers shirt, that they haven't won anything of note. I think that becomes another layer of pressure that gets put onto Rangers if the fans are looking at it going, oh, look at this, we've got the same squad back again. Obviously, there has to be a degree of patience. The transfer window's only just open, but it is going to be fascinating to see how quickly Rangers can start to shake this up and make significant changes to the profile of that squad, because that's what the Rangers supporters will be dying to see ahead of the new campaign.
Singing the Blues in the comment section says Rome wasn't built in a day. Trust the process. Just before we move on from Rangers, I wanted to get your take.
Is there any more cliches we can throw in?
I wanted to get your take on Cyril Dessers, because Scott and I spoke about it a lot last night, and Scott, you've had a couple of really good reads on Record Sport Online today. One with Kmar Roof, his opinion on Cyril Dessers at Rangers, and if you're a Rangers fan, it's definitely essential reading. We talked about it last night, Keith. Look, as far as I'm concerned, 51 goals in 2 seasons, very hard to replicate. I would think twice before selling Dessers, but what do you think?
Oh, well, this sounds like a deal that might just suit all parties. How many times have I said that I think he's a lovely big fella, and he was the kind of guy you were always thinking you would like to see a good guy, doing well. But time and again, he just did Cyril Dessers things, didn't he? And again, you kind of come to the what I'm just talking about there with the Rangers supporters. They want to see fresh faces, something different, a change of the menu. If Cyril Dessers, and I did say this, as much as I like him and admire him for all the work and effort and everything that he's put into his time at Rangers, he's a number 9 that's not likely to win you a league title. He misses too many chances in big moments and big matches. He's capable of some outrageous finishes, but do you know what? In an ideal world for Rangers, you probably keep him, and you've got him. He's a good option to have. But I'm not sure that is a situation that Rangers are in just now in terms of can they afford to turn down decent money for a player who, can be so frustratingly hit and miss. And what's the fee we're talking about? Somewhere in the region of £5 million, there or thereabouts, Scott? Is that the number?
I think it's got to be about 4 million. You're talking, Jacko.
I think that becomes difficult to turn down from a Rangers point of view, especially at the age is as well, and just the fact that it just hasn't really worked for him. And there will be supporters. I think there'll be Rangers fans out there who, despite of his contribution in terms of goals, will be happy to see it moving on and things changing, because I think there'd be a large section of the Rangers support that would look at it and think, well, if Dessers is leading the line again this season, it's another season where Rangers are unlikely to deliver very much. And that's probably cruel on Dessers, because hard on him, because he's probably contributed a lot more than so many other players in that squad. But that's why there's a value. That's why there's somebody sniffing at him, and that's why Rangers, might find it difficult to turn down the sort of money we're talking about here for a guy of his age. As I said, I think it really is about freshening up the menu this summer for Rangers.
In your chat with Kemar Roof, Scott, which is on Record Sport Online just now, he does say, look, I think Rangers perhaps might regret selling Dessers. I can't really disagree with anything he said there, to be honest. As much as I'd like to.
They might regret it in the sense that if they don't get a guy in who, as you say, replicates that goal return, then of course they'll regret it. And that's you sign a new striker, it's always a gamble that he doesn't hit the ground running. Obviously, they've been linked with Turgeman and Frigan, the Croatian, who have got decent enough records, but coming to Scottish football, you'll know what you're going to get initially. The thing about Dessers is, whether you like him or no, he guarantees you 25 goals a season because he's done it for the two seasons. And the other thing that Kemar Roof touched on, and I've mentioned it here, the thing I think they'll lose, and again they would have to try and replicate, is he has a big character in that dressing room, and he's one of the few, I think Jacko mentioned it there, he's one of the few, I think, who can actually handle the pressure and the expectation and that comes with playing with Rangers. He doesn't criticism doesn't bother him. Missing chances clearly doesn't bother him. He just comes back for more. But I agree with Keith. I said it last night. In a perfect world, Rangers would keep him, and he would be like the backup to a new striker coming in, or he'd be competing with a new number 9 because he can score goals. He's also got a really good record coming off the bench. Dessers, even at Feyenoord before he got to Rangers. So in a perfect world, you would keep him, but when that money's on the table, £4 million, he's 30, 31. I think it's hard to turn down. But it will frustrate a lot of fans because there is a list of players there. I rhymed them off last night who punters would want rid of. They'd probably want rid of Danilo, for instance, before Dessers. But how do you get Danilo off the books? He's not been playing. He's got 3 years left in his deal. It's a difficult one to do. Whereas if you've got a cast iron bid there for Dessers, and it looks as if he's kind of intimated that he would be keen on a move to Greece, then I don't see how you can knock it back. Going
across the city, Keith, because time's getting away from us. Back in the game 77 says, who's CCV linked with? Obviously referring to Cameron Carter-Vickers. You wrote a piece for Record Sport Online today talking about Celtic's stance. I would get kicked off by simply saying he would be one player, if I was Brendan Rodgers, I'd say untouchable. You cannot sell him.
Again, it's difficult, isn't it, with these player trading models? Celtic have a great value at Carter Vickers. What's that, 4 years now?
Aye.
£6 million. And he's now an age, 27, I think, where if there's a big move in Cameron Carter Vickers, it's now. So there's all sorts of different kind of threads involved in this. My information, look, I think that there's a lot of speculation swirling around out there that a deal is on. It's on the cards. I think Leeds United and Sunderland have been credited with real strong interest. The Leeds United thing, again, that's an interesting factor, isn't it? How the Celtic fans feel about that. If the 49ers were to, take away their star centre-half and take them down to Leeds next season. What does Cameron Carter's feel? What does he think is the best next step? It didn't work for him at Spurs. Does he still have ambitions to go down to the England, the top league in England and prove what he's all about? Because he's shown his quality in the Champions League. He is top notch. And I think he'll be, he would be a great addition to a Sunderland or a Leeds if they were looking to try and shore up the defensive abilities ahead of a new season. So that is all really interesting. But the kind of news version of it, or the news line that I got today, is that Celtic are very relaxed about it. So that indicates to me this isn't something that, I don't think there has, in fact, I can guarantee you there's been no contact made between the clubs. There's been no contact made from Cameron Carter Vickers' camp to Brendan Rodgers or anybody else at Celtic. He's really settled in Glasgow and he's still got 4 years to run in his contract. Yeah. So in terms of where Celtic are at with this, they are not they're not pressing any panic buttons. And I think Brendan Rodgers feels fairly relaxed about it. I think the kind of feeling is, well, this is just the sort of speculation you get at this time in the summer. But there's nothing that has happened over the last few days that would lead Celtic to believe that, we've got a hostile bid coming in here for him and we don't know what his attitude would be. I don't think they've got a decision to make, is basically the long and short of it. But that doesn't mean that at some point in the future, somebody doesn't put something on the table and it gives them something to think about. Because if you're actually going by the player trading model, 27, this is your kind of optimum window now in terms of what you might look to achieve in the transfer market if you did want to make that move. But Celtic would be all the worse off without him, because he's the one constant in that, in the centre of defence. They're trying to find a partner for him who's just as reliable, just as robust, just as trustworthy. And they've not found that yet. So you don't want to, well, you think you already need one new recruit as a centre-half this summer. I don't think Brendan Rodgers would be too happy about scraping around looking for a second one as well, and a total rebuild of the middle of his defence. So I can understand from a purely football perspective, that's not one Celtic would want to look at. It just depends. Does somebody make it worth their while financially?
You can see from the comments, John, they're saying CCV is unsellable. The one player that I think a lot of Celtic fans are a bit more receptive to a bid from, or for rather, is Nicholas Kuhn. There was rumours that came out last night, reports that RB Leipzig are interested in apparently a £15 million move. Stephen says if RB Leipzig are ready to offer £15 million for Kuhn, Celtic should bite their hand off. It seemed his mind was elsewhere towards the latter part of last season. Craig says the same, Celtic should cash in. He's worth a lot more than £15 million though. Stephen simply says take the £15 million for Kuhn and run. If you got, say, between £12 and £15 million, Scott, would you take it for Kuhn?
100%. Aye. I mean, 15 million for Kuhn. I agree with the comments there. I would bite your hand off for that. No, given the short period he's been at Celtic, he didn't start too well. Remember famously the problem, his wisdom teeth and stuff like that. Didn't start too well. Then Brendan Rodgers seemed to get a kind of hold of him pre-season. It was like a whirlwind. Remember like goals in pre-season against Man City and stuff like that. And then obviously does really well. But I touched on it last night. I thought he'd kind of gone off the boil towards the end of last season. And Mick mentioned it on here that even when they won the title at Tannadice, I was there that day and he came in afterwards and seemed a bit kind of. Well, he was happy to win the league, obviously, but he was a bit sully. He was kind of having a go at people for daring to criticise him earlier in the season, and just didn't look 100% happy. So look, I think, I mean, he's a right good player, and he proved in the Champions League. I mean, he was brilliant away to Bayern. A couple of the home games, he was really good as well. So he's proved he can do it, but for 15 million, that's a hefty sum, I think, for a guy like him. And if there was any hint at all that he wasn't 100% happy or he'd be open to a move, maybe his heart maybe not in it completely, then I would bite your hand off for that kind of money. And then you go and, obviously with Negreira coming in, but you would go and try and find another replacement.
Particularly, Keith, when he costs 3 million.
Yeah,
if the reports are to be believed, and a lot of the comments there, Carter saying he was good last season, admittedly fell off form, but still a good player. John saying he's blowing hot and cold during his time in Glasgow, sell him if a good offer comes in. And Paul and Rebel saying he lost interest after Bayern. If you did get between 12 and 15 million, 4 or 5 times your money, I'd be pretty tempted to take it if I was Celtic.
Oh, I mean, you'd be mad not to if you could, multiply your investment by 5. Buy for 3, sell for 15. That's I'm not sure that Celtic would get 15 for him, if I'm perfectly honest. Although I do think the German market will be interesting, because it almost seemed to me as if Nicholas Kuhn, I think Scott's right, he went into the season and he was bursting to prove himself. He knew that he hadn't really made a big enough dent in his first few months. It kind of, I think he found it difficult to adjust. And you said, Scott, the stuff with his teeth, I think he lost a lot of weight. I thought he'd put on a bit, he bulked up. I mean, he's not a big guy, but he looked physically stronger at the start of the season. He looked ready, fresh, hungry. And I just wonder, when you actually analyse it, there's a couple of the comments there that, he lost interest after the Bayern game. I wonder if Nicholas Kuhn attacked the start of last season knowing the Champions League was where he wanted to play and where he wanted to showcase his ability. And that's the one that really excited him. The prospect of going and playing against a big German side. Played against a couple of them. Did really well. Scored once against Bayern. In the knockout stages, scored 2, I think, at home to Leipzig.
Yep.
So he really showcased himself. And you wonder if Scott, the suggestion is that he's not that bothered if he's checked out. If he checked out of the season when it just became a domestic matter. If there is an element of that, then I think he's done what he wanted to do last season then, which was remind the clubs back home in Germany that he shouldn't have been allowed to leave the country in the first place. Because he made the impact that he did in those particular games in the Champions League, you could understand if there was a few clubs, and I think there are a few German clubs who are all having a proper look. That way, you hope that you can get yourself into a situation where it becomes a bidding war, and you've got one trying to outmaneuver the other. But 15 million is still a very big number. I think if Celtic could, and over the course of 18 months, if you could turn a £3 million player and then turn a profit and sell him for 10, 12 million, I think that's excellent business, whatever way you look at it.
He also wants to play for Germany. Jack, we said that a few times.
He has.
I'm not saying he can't do it at Celtic, but I mean, even at top form for Celtic, the Champions League, he wasn't getting a look in. He might just think, if I'm going to do this, I need to go back to the Bundesliga.
He did. I've interviewed him, Scott, and you're exactly right. He said there were a number of things about what he wanted to do with his future, and one of them was he wanted to prove that he could play at the Champions League level. That was, I'm going way back now to pre-season last season, or last summer. And that was a massive motivation for him because he wanted to go and prove that he could play at that level. And he did mention in the same interview, Scott, that he still harboured ambitions of breaking into the German national side. I think he did himself no harm at all in that regard with his performances in the Champions League last season. But I think you might be right. If that is something that's driving him and motivating him, then, for a guy that started his career, Bayern Munich, Ajax, to have ended up at Rapid Vienna, it tells you that the career wasn't going in the way that he would have wanted to. Now I'm not saying he's used Celtic as a stepping stone, but do you know what? Most people do see Celtic, Rangers, whoever else, as a career stepping stone. And if he feels the time is right, and there's that he's hot in terms of the German market because of his performances in the Champions League, well, it might make sense again for all parties. If that's where Nicholas Kuhn wants to be, and if Celtic can turn a real significant profit in the space of 18 months, well, that's good business for everybody, isn't it?
And of course, coming in, Celtic have been linked with another Japanese player, Hayota Inamura, who's a defender. I guess time will tell with that one as well.
Scott, can you talk us through him, his qualities?
Very good. He's got a brilliant left foot.
Yeah,
I watched one clip of him a day, and it was just hitting big, cracking diagonals for left centre back. So, he'll do for me, Jacko.
In the comment section, Robbo says, "Is Andy Newport only coming on when Rangers sign a player?" We'll pass on your kind regards, Robbo.
Very good question.
It's a very good question, Scott, isn't it? He seems to be nice. AWOL at the minute. Before we finish, guys, I wanted to get both your takes on the Club World Cup. Are you having it at all? Any interest? I watched a little bit of Bayern Munich absolutely scudding Auckland last night, 10-0. Auckland had a fireman playing, a guy that works for Coca-Cola. It seemed he was having to give up a month's wages. I mean, he's having. I mean, Keith, talk to me. Is this up your alley?
It's grotesque. It is. It's grotesque, and it's Infantino at his worst. And this is all about making money. It's just a cash grab, and there's no other way of looking at it. And I think it's outrageous at a time when the top players, not the guy for Coca-Cola, right? But the big players that are playing international level, playing Champions League, trying to win their trophies domestically, to send them out there look, I'm not going to say slave labor because of the money that's involved in these guys. These guys are making good wages, of course they are. So you're not going to throw about a term like that. But where's the common sense in this? It's way too much. And I think, and just because of the cash that's involved in this, Real Madrid have made a decision with Jude Bellingham that they want him to play in this tournament because the cash and offer for winning it is more interest to them than how they start their own domestic season and the early European games next at the start of next campaign, because Jude Bellingham needs an operation and they're stalling on it. But once he gets this out the road, so this is the time when Jude Bellingham should be going under a knife and getting ready. So he's does his rehab and he's back in time for the start of the next campaign. But because of the finances that are on offer here, grotesque amounts, Jude Bellingham doesn't get his operation and then misses the start of next season. Mm-hmm. And this is all Infantino's sort of dream to reprioritise football across the globe. This is a sham of a tournament. I have to be honest with you. They managed to find a way of shoehorning Lionel Messi and into Miami into it. And that worked in terms of me, because that's the only game that I've watched any part of so far. Because who doesn't want to watch Lionel Messi? I accept it. It's like when Sky do the box office boxing. I'm not paying for that. No chance. No interested. And then you end up the day of the fight. I need it. So you get suckered and you end up paying your money and watching it. And I get suckered into, I want to see Lionel Messi because even at this stage in his career, he's just a magician and he's the best ever. And you're not going to get that many chances to see him. So yeah, I watched 10, 15 minutes. I was bored to tears with it. And Lionel Messi looked as if he was bored to tears with it as well, I have to tell you. Best player in the park, but not difficult. And I haven't watched a minute of any of the other games, and I have no intention of doing so. I'll probably do what I did with the pay-per-view Sky boxing and all that. Once it gets to the later stages and the final games, I'll probably not be able to resist it, and I'll want to watch it. But I hate what Infantino is doing to the game. So I find it objectionable, the whole concept.
Well, Daniel, don't listen to him. He's talking rubbish. I think it's brilliant. Nah,
What are you
No.
enjoying about it, Scott?
No, I'm joking. Nah, I mean, I can't really get into it. I mean, I agree with Jack. I kind of, because obviously the season finishes, you're still craving, a bit of football. I thought I would get into it, but the Bayern game, for instance, was an absolute
It's a
shambles.
farce.
Aye, I mean, I turned it over to the PSG Atletico game, thinking it would kind of catch my attention, but nah, I mean, I ended up just switching it back over to the golf. I was watching the US Open. Watching the US Open, Cameron Carter-Vickers won that as well. Is that good? But nah, I can't get into it. And just as Jacko says, that in terms of the players, the one that kind of stuck out for me, and there'll be more, but just when it was in my mind, watching the wee guy Vitinha at PSG, who I love watching.
He's brilliant, eh?
No, you're watching them Champions League final. No, the exertions of that. He then went straight into the Nations League with Portugal. They get to the final, and then it goes to extra time. So you're watching them in that. Then think they go straight for that, then to the Club World Cup again. I mean, when's the guy going to get a rest?
I've got to ruin people. I've got to ruin some of the best players, some of the players that you really enjoy watching. They're going to get ruined by this sort of schedule.
I said recently that David Beckham at this point in his career had played, I think it was like 54 games, and Lamine Yamal's played 200 odd already. He's going to be gubbed by the time he's 27, 28.
Well, you really hope not. But
not.
the sort of greed is the thing that I've got the real issue with. In fact, here's how bad it is. I watched Soccer Aid last night. I'd rather watch that. I'd rather watch that. Big Zoo.
Big Zoo. I did see the clip of that. The one thing actually on the Club World Cup I thought was brilliant, and I wish I could remember his name. One of the Auckland players was getting interviewed on DAZN, and they said, "So what's your day job?" He said, "I'm actually a high-level transportation specialist, and he's a lorry driver," which I just thought was absolutely brilliant. But aye, very grubby. I think you're right, Keith. Before we finish, Brian wants to know where we went on holiday and if we had a good time.
Well, we didn't go together. That's the first thing you need to know.
No, we did. Brian, don't listen to him. We all went together.
If you must know, I just haven't been a real holiday. I just needed a wee break. So I went away. I got 4 nights in Spain and Malaga last week, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and thoroughly recommend it as well to everybody. Fantastic place.
I was in Malta, but Scott, have you been away anywhere yet?
Not been anywhere yet, Daniel. I'm obviously the only workhorse amongst us who's just grafting right through the summer.
Watching that J-League and that.
I'll finally get away on July the 15th to Turkey with the family, so I can't wait.
So just when the football starts back, Scott, you'll just head off,
Aye, basically. Listen, that's the easy stuff. That's everything starts then, so it'll be easy for you guys. Know what I mean?
That's true.
You're doing the heavy lifting through the barren days of the summer. Thanks for that, Scott.
I was laughing at Jacko mentioning Soccer Aid there because I mean how desperate I am for my football fix. I didn't just watch it, but I put a bet on it, and and I bet. Wait, you see this? I bet on Soccer Aid, Wayne Rooney to score, Jermaine Defoe to score, and England to win by minimum 2 goals. And of course, after half time, Defoe scores the 3-0 up and think, here we go.
Carlos Tevez comes on and kills you.
Carlos Tevez comes on, forgets it's a charity game, starts playing at a world. Absolutely killed my bet. So.
Carter says Rangers are in for Big Zoo, Scott. So I mean that could be an exclusive for us.
Oh,
I think on that note, that brings us to the end of Monday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thank you so much for all of the comments. If you want to get involved in tomorrow night's conversation, we'll do it all again from 6 p.m. Scott, Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers, Daniel.
Good to be back.
Absolutely. And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.